Welcome to episode number 1 of Think in English with me, Teacher Tiffany. In this series, you are going to learn how to think in English like a native English speaker using 5 specific sections. Are you ready? Well then, let's jump right in. Our episode is all about motivation. Section number 1 is the gap you can hear. You see, we're going to look at 3 real-life situations, each shown 2 ways. How a learner, an English learner, would handle it, and how a native English speaker would handle it. No teaching yet, no breakdown, no analysis. I just want you to listen, to recognize the difference. The gap between the 2 versions is the whole point. Once you hear it clearly, you can't unhear it. So we're going to look at 3 real life situations. Here is situation number 1, at the gym. Now, an English learner would have a conversation like this. How do you stay motivated to come here every day? I just try. It's hard, but I do it. That's good. Yeah, you can do it too. Now, that's a good dialogue. That's a good conversation, but it's also a conversation that an English learner would have. Now let's listen to a conversation about the same topic that native English speakers would have. How do you stay motivated to come here every day? I'm honestly struggling lately. Honestly, I stopped relying on motivation. I just stick to the same time, 6 a.m., no negotiation. My bag's packed the night before, my shoes are by the door, my pre-workout is already measured out. By the time I'm thinking about it, whether I want to go, I'm already halfway out the door. That's smart. I keep waiting to feel like it. Yeah, that's the trap. Feeling like it almost never shows up. The system shows up for you. Now you can hear the difference between these 2 conversations. Again, the learner conversation and the native English speaker conversation. Check out this situation, another example. We're talking about now a conversation between 2 coworkers. This is how the conversation starts for a learner. Do you think motivation is important? Yes, motivation is very important. Without it, you can't do anything. I agree. It's important. Yes. Now, that was a good conversation. It was clear. What are your thoughts on motivation? However, it represented a conversation that a learner, an English learner, would have. Now listen to the difference when you hear a native English speaker have the same conversation with another native English speaker. Do you think motivation or discipline matters more for getting things done? Response: discipline. It's not even close, honestly. Motivation comes and goes. It's a feeling, and feelings are unreliable, especially when you're tired or stressed or just having a bad day. Discipline doesn't care how you feel, it just does the work. Interesting take. So you're saying motivation is overrated? Not overrated. It's just a starting point. It gets you in the door. Discipline keeps you in the room. Notice the difference. Both dialogues, both conversations, each individual said grammatically correct statements. However, you noticed the difference. What about this situation? 2 friends are speaking. This is what an English learner would say in a conversation. Have you ever lost motivation? Yes. Many times. It's normal. What did you do? I continued. It's important to continue. You said your thought, you stated your point, and it was grammatically correct. Now listen to the difference. Again, we're recognizing this gap, the gap you hear. A native speaker. Have you ever totally lost motivation in the middle of something big? Oh, big time. When I was writing my thesis, I hit a wall around month 4. I couldn't even open the document. I'd sit at my desk, stare at the screen, and find any excuse to not work, clean my apartment, reorganize my bookshelf, you name it. I was convinced I'd picked the wrong topic. Eventually, my advisor told me to just write the worst possible version. Junk, garbage, anything. Once I gave myself permission to write badly, I finished the draft in 3 weeks. Wow. So the perfectionism was the real problem. Exactly. The motivation wasn't gone. It was just buried under all the pressure I was putting on myself. You see the gap between an English learner and a native English speaker. This is section 1, again, teaching you how to think in English with me. Now let's move to section number 2. You recognize the gap. Now it's time to look at the word you don't have yet. You see, inside each native speaker dialogue is a word or phrase that an English learner wouldn't think to use. Not because it's complicated, but because nobody ever taught it as active vocabulary. We pull one term out of each dialogue. That's what we're going to do. We're going to pull one term out of each dialogue. 3 terms total for this section. Real words, the kind that shift how you sound the moment they enter your speech. So we're going to go back to the situations, now section 2, and pick out a word from each dialogue. So situation number 1, again, looking at situation number 1, still talking about motivation. In the conversation, no negotiation was said. This is how it was said. This is where it lives in the dialogue. I just stick to the same time, 6 a.m., no negotiation. Now, this is from the native English speaker's dialogue. This expression, no negotiation. So, what does it mean in real use? A non-negotiable commitment, a line you've already drawn that the daily version of you doesn't get to argue with. No negotiation. Now, why would you as an English learner not have this? You see, an English learner would say, I never miss it, or it's important to me. Both of these, while grammatically correct, are kind of flat. However, no negotiation carries the entire mindset in only 2 words. Now, let's check the portability of this expression. Bedtime is 10 p.m., no negotiation. Sundays are family days, no negotiation. I don't take meetings before 9, no negotiation. And I'll give you another example, and this is a real one for me as your English teacher. I don't work on Saturdays, no negotiation. I don't help people. I don't work on anything on Sabbath. On Saturday, I'm a Sabbath keeper, no negotiation. So you see how you can use it in real life. Again, we're picking out one word or one expression from section 1, the conversation. Here is situation number 2. Situation number 2, now, we had a very unique expression. We had the expression comes and goes. This is how it was used, where it lived in the dialogue. Motivation comes and goes. It's a feeling. Motivation comes and goes. It's a feeling. Now let's go just a bit deeper. So let's see what it means in real use. You see, comes and goes is something that arrives and leaves on its own, unreliably, and it's outside of your control. Now, why would you not have this initially? You see, an English learner would say, motivation is not always there, or sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't. But these 2 ways of saying this or expressing this thought, they're clunky and long. But comes and goes handles it in 3 words and sounds native. So let's do a portability check, how you can use this in real life. The pain comes and goes. My focus comes and goes throughout the day. Friends come and go. Family stays. You see now this expression comes and goes. From section 1, from the native English speaker dialogue, we pulled it out from situation number 2. Now check out situation number 3. Again, we're looking at this example, and in our dialogue, it was said, hit a wall. This is how it was said. I hit a wall around month 4. I hit a wall around month 4. So we've pulled this out of the dialogue. Now, I hit a wall. What does it mean? It's a sudden, total inability to continue forward, usually emotional, mental, or energetic. Not a slow down, an actual wall. So why wouldn't you already have this? You see, an English learner would say, I became very tired, or I couldn't continue. These are accurate statements, but they're lifeless. On the other hand, hit a wall carries the suddenness and the helplessness in 3 words. So how can you use it in real life? I hit a wall around mile 20. We hit a wall in the negotiation. I hit a wall halfway through the book. You see now how it is used in real life. This is why it is so powerful. Now we move on to section number 3. How they build their sentences. So this is where we're going to dive deeper into understanding how native speakers build their sentences. The same 3 dialogues, but now we look underneath. Native speakers don't just use better words. We build our answers on hidden patterns. 3 patterns to recognize: answering with details, defending an opinion with reasons, and walking someone through a personal experience. You see, once you start to see these patterns, you'll start hearing them everywhere. So let's jump into, again, our first situation to see how this will play out. So our first situation, this is what a learner would say. The learner would say, I just try, but there are 0 details. The viewer learns nothing about how. We're just hearing you say, I try, when I'm trying to be motivated. However, when we dive deeper into a native speaker's response and the details, native speakers stack specific, concrete details. Here's what it looks like. Watch closely. The time, 6 a.m. The bag, packed the night before. The shoes by the door. And the pre-workout, already measured out. Remember, these were details that were included in the first dialogue, the first situation. You see, here's the pattern that you want to notice. Native speakers answer how questions with things you can see, not abstractions, not I just stay consistent. Specific objects, specific times, and specific actions. Now let's look at the second situation, our second situation. And again, remember how the English learner would have responded, would have answered in this situation. So an English learner, again, would say, yes, motivation is important. That's stating a position, but not giving any reasons. Then an English learner would just agree with whatever is said next. But remember, we're trying to go deeper. We want to see how a native speaker would respond and break down that structure, which is actually giving an opinion and adding reasons. Native speakers state a clear position. They state their position and then defend it. What's the position? Discipline. It's not even close. Reason number 1 mentioned. Motivation comes and goes. It's a feeling. Reason number 2. Feelings are unreliable, especially when you're tired or stressed. And reason number 3. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It just does the work. You see, here's the pattern to notice. Native speakers don't soften their opinions into mush. They take a clear side, then back it with 3 reasons stacked one after another. The conviction is in the structure. Opinion plus reasons. So we have the detail structure. Then we had the opinion and reasons. Now we move to number 3. Personal experience. Now, a learner would respond, and we read the response of the learner, says yes many times. Admitting the experience exists, but not entering into it, not giving the listener any more information about the personal experience. Now, with the native, we are walking through the actual scene, thinking about the dialogue, the when I was writing my thesis, breakdown moment, month 4, couldn't open the document, different behaviors, clean my apartment, reorganize my bookshelf, the turning point. My advisor told me to write the worst possible version, and the resolution. Finished the draft in 3 weeks. Here's the pattern to notice. Native speakers don't summarize their experiences. They place the listener inside them with a beginning, a worst moment, a turn, and a result. This is how we build sentences and how you should do the same. Again, details, opinions and reasons, personal experiences, which leads us to section number 4. Sound exactly like them. We've heard the gap, recognized the difference. We've recognized the words that were used by native speakers. Now we're going to, after we already kind of broke down the structure, now we're going to sound exactly like them. You see, here's where the 2 layers come together. The structure from section 3 plus the term from section 2. Working in one response. This is what it actually sounds like when a native speaker handles the situation and what it could sound like coming out of your mouth. So let's break it down. The first situation again. Now looking at the learner. So a learner's response, again for contrast, it was, I just try, it's hard, but I do it. But we want to have details plus the term no negotiation. Remember, we learned that. All right. So now look at how a native would respond. This is the response. Fully emulated native response. I stopped relying on motivation. I just stick to the same time. 6 a.m., no negotiation. My bag's packed the night before. My shoes are by the door. My pre-workout is already measured out. What do you notice? The structure. Specific details plus the term, which is no negotiation, together create the native sound. Neither one alone is enough. Details without the term sounds organized but learner flavored. The term without details sounds like a quote with nothing behind it. Again, details plus our new term, no negotiation. Look at this second example. Again, the second situation that we had for our lesson today. Reminding you the learner response. Yes, motivation is very important. Without it, you can't do anything. Now, we're going to listen to the native response again. Opinion, reason, and the term or expression comes and goes. Listen closely. Again, we heard this in our dialogue. Fully emulated native response. Discipline. It's not even close. Motivation comes and goes. It's a feeling, and feelings are unreliable, especially when you're tired or stressed. Discipline doesn't care how you feel, it just does the work. So what are we noticing? The opinion. Discipline is greater or more important than motivation. This opinion is held up by 3 reasons, and the term comes and goes is what gives the reason, number 1, its bite. Without it, the sentence would be, motivation is not always there. Same idea, but it sounds like a response that a learner would give, not a native speaker. Here's the third situation. Remember, we're looking first at how an English learner would respond. Yes, many times it's normal. But when we look at the native response, here's what it would be. Again, personal experience plus our term hit the wall. Big time. When I was writing my thesis, I hit a wall around month 4. I couldn't even open the document. I'd sit at my desk, stare at the screen, and find any excuse not to work. Eventually, my advisor told me to just write the worst possible version. Once I gave myself permission to write badly, I finished the draft in 3 weeks. So, personal experience plus our expression hit the wall. But what are we noticing? We're noticing the experience structure, when, breakdown, behaviors, turning point, result. This carries the story. And our expression, hit the wall, is the term that locates the breakdown moment with native precision. This is why it's so important. Again, section 4, sounding exactly like them. You're using the structure we got from the dialogue, and then we're adding the word, the expression we learned in section number 2. This leads us to section number 5. Your turn to think in English. Now, fresh questions, not dialogues. The kind of discussion questions you could be asked in a real conversation tomorrow. Each one comes with the flat learner response, how a regular English learner would respond. Not you, because you've learned now. And it also will show you 3 native responses, one built on each pattern. Remember the details or opinions and reasons or personal experience. The point isn't just to memorize any of them. The point is to notice that what changes when you stop answering like a learner and start thinking like a native speaker will help you improve your English fluency. So here's our first situation. Here's the question. What helps you stay motivated when you don't feel like doing something? All right, this is our question. So our learner response, I just try. It's hard, but I keep going. Now, this is the question. Here is the first response from a native speaker using the details structure. I set the smallest possible goal. Instead of work out, it's put on my shoes. Instead of write the report, it's open the document. Once I'm there, the rest usually follows. This is a response based on details. Now let's look at a response to this question using the structure opinions plus reasons. Honestly, motivation isn't the answer. The answer is removing decisions. The fewer choices you give yourself in the moment, the more likely you are to actually do the thing. That's why people set out their clothes the night before. And finally, personal experience. Same question, but different structure for our answer. Personal experience would be this. There was a stretch last winter when I couldn't get myself to work out. What finally worked was telling a friend I'd meet her at 6 a.m. I couldn't bail on her, so I showed up. 3 weeks later, it was a habit. So you see again, this question, what helps you stay motivated when you don't feel like doing something? We have the comparison of our learner response to the native English response. What about this question? Question number 2. Do you think motivation matters or is it overrated? A learner would say this. Yes, I think motivation is important. That's not a bad response. But we want to see how a native speaker would respond. Again, we're thinking in English using these 5 sections. Here's how a native speaker would respond using the detailed structure. It matters at the start. The first day of a new job, the first run, the first chapter of a book. That's where motivation lights the fire. But after week 2, it's gone and you need something else, giving details. Now we have the second structure, opinions plus reasons. It's overrated. Everyone treats motivation like the answer, but it's the most unreliable feeling there is. It shows up when conditions are perfect and disappears the second things get hard. That's exactly when you need it most, which means motivation fails you at the worst possible moment. And finally, our third structure, personal experience. I used to think it mattered. Then I watched a coworker finish a marathon while clearly hating every step of the training. She wasn't motivated. She was committed. That's when I realized I'd been chasing the wrong thing for years. So you see the difference, right? We have 3 different structures to answer this question. An English learner without the structures would simply say, yes, I think motivation is important. But now you have the right structures. What about this question? Question number 3. Tell me about a time you almost gave up on something important. Now a learner would say, yes, one time I almost gave up, but I continued. No details, no opinion, no experience. Now a native response, starting with details to the question. Again, the question being, tell me about a time you almost gave up on something important with detail structure. I was 3 months into learning Spanish. I'd been using an app every day, 20 minutes minimum, and one night I just sat there staring at the screen. Nothing was sticking. The streaks meant nothing. I closed the app and didn't open it for 2 weeks. Next, we have opinion plus reasons. I almost quit my master's program in year 2. I told myself it wasn't worth the debt and the stress, but I realized I was running from the work, not from the program. Once I named that, I couldn't justify quitting because the next thing would have the same problem. I'd experience the same thing. And finally, personal experience. Last year, I almost walked away from a project I'd worked on for 8 months. I called my mom in tears, told her I was done. She didn't argue. She just said, sleep on it. You can quit tomorrow. I woke up the next day and kept going. That call saved the whole thing. You see, in this section, you are thinking in English. You are putting into practice what you learned during the previous 4 sections. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll talk to you in the next one.